This envelope changed everything. My mother slid it across the linen tablecloth, her diamond ring catching the cold light of the Seattle skyline. My sister, Ashley, leaned in, phone ready, pretending this was a moment worth remembering. The restaurant, Arya, fell quiet. The string quartet in the corner seemed to hesitate mid-note. Inside that heavy, cream-colored envelope wasn't a check or a sentimental card. It was a letter, legally drafted and signed by all of them. My graduation present, a document titled The Sunset Clause, formally severing all ties. I was a non-performing asset, an investment that had failed to yield a return. They expected tears, a scene, something to capture and privately ridicule later. They waited for the drama, but I'd already lived through the real drama. In silence. For years, I folded the letter once, then twice. The crisp paper, a final, clean break. I placed it beside my water glass and looked at my father, Robert, whose expression was one of bored finality. I looked at my mother, Jennifer, her smile, a perfect, polished mask of sympathy. Then I looked at Ashley, her phone still raised, a vulture waiting for a carcass. "Thank you," I said. My voice was even calm, for the clarity. My father's jaw tightened slightly. My mother's smile faltered. Ashley blinked, confused. Then, I reached into my bag. I pulled out my own folder. It was sleek, gray, unassuming. I placed it on the table with a soft, definitive sound that cut through the silence. They thought they had written my ending. They had no idea they just started their own. This wasn't a negotiation. It was a notification. I watched the power in the room shift. A subtle current moving from their side of the table directly to mine. Their meticulously planned execution had just become my opening statement. The air grew thick with questions they hadn't prepared for. They were financiers, experts in calculated risks and hostile takeovers. They just never imagined one would be sitting across the table from them, holding their bloodline. I let the silence hang there for a moment. A weapon they had taught me to wield. They had built a world on ledgers and bottom lines, and I was about to show them the final accounting. Growing up, I learned early that love in our house came with performance metrics. Our waterfront estate on Mercer Island wasn't a home, it was a portfolio. My father, Robert Morgan, a partner in private equity, measured worth in return on investment. My mother, Jennifer, measured it in appearances, curating our lives for the society pages. My sister, Ashley, was their blue-chip stock, a perfect balance of both. She was the daughter who made partner at her law firm before 30, the one whose wedding would be a strategic merger. At dinner parties, I was always introduced last, an afterthought. "And this is Jessica," my mother would say, her tone softening with a hint of apology. "She's in tech, still working on her little project." The guests would nod, their eyes glazing over, already turning back to the real assets in the room. I was the R&D project, the unpredictable venture capital play that might never pay off. I learned to smile quietly, to become part of the decor. My achievements were always minimized, treated like statistical noise. When I won my first coding competition, my father glanced at the trophy and asked if it came with a cash prize. When I got a full scholarship for my master's, my mother's first question was whether the university's name was prestigious enough to mention at her next gala. They saw my passion not as a fire, but as a liability, an inefficient allocation of resources. Only one person ever saw it differently. My uncle, Michael, was an architect. He understood building things from the ground up. He'd visit on Sundays, ignoring the tense family brunches to find me in my room, surrounded by circuit boards and schematics. He never offered advice on monetization or marketability. He'd just look at my work and say, "Keep building. Jess, the foundation is solid." He was the only one who understood that I wasn't an R&D project. I was building an entirely new market. He taught me that the most powerful structures are the ones that can withstand pressure from the inside. He was right. The pressure was immense. Every family dinner was a quarterly review. I was destined to fail. Every holiday was a shareholder meeting where my value was found wanting. They were trying to liquidate me, to write me off as a loss. They just didn't realize I had already built my own exit strategy. The end began not with a bang, but with a text message. 2 weeks before the dinner at Aria, a notification lit up the family group chat. A reservation for 4. My name was conspicuously absent. When I asked Ashley about it, she replied a few hours later. A single, dismissive text. "Don't overthink it. It's just a formatting error." Formatting. That was the word that echoed. That's how they saw me. A data point that could be easily deleted. A variable that disrupted the clean lines of their spreadsheet. A formatting error. That night, the night before the dinner, I stood in my small apartment overlooking the city. My own documents were freshly printed, the ink still smelling of finality. And for a moment, the imposter's shadow fell over me. The voices of my family swirled in my head. A chorus of doubt and dismissal. A little project. Non-performing asset. Still studying. I looked at my reflection in the dark window and saw the girl they always described, the quiet. Unpredictable. Unprofitable one. A fraud who had gotten lucky. The feeling was suffocating. A weight pressing down on my chest. Was this real? Did I actually build this? Or was I just playing a part? Faking a confidence I didn't possess. My hand trembled as I reached for my laptop. I almost closed it. I almost deleted everything and accepted the narrative they had written for me. But then my fingers touched the screen. I scrolled through the lines of code. The complex algorithms. The hard data. I saw the server uptime reports. 99.9%. I saw the user engagement metrics. The efficiency gains charted in stark, beautiful graphs. Numbers. The language my father understood. But these were numbers he had never seen. These were my numbers. This wasn't luck. It wasn't a gift. It was work. Thousands of hours of work. Poured into the quiet darkness while they attended galas and posed for photographers. The doubt didn't vanish in a blaze of glory. It receded, replaced by a cold, hard certainty. The fear transformed, not into courage, but into steel. They had made a calculation, a cold and rational business decision. And tomorrow, I would present them with my own new emotion. No tears, just the data. The company was called Nexus Flow, an AI that rerouted logistics for sustainability. And 6 months ago, it was a spectacular failure. The memory is still sharp. A conference room, stale coffee, and the faces of my co-founders, Matthew and Sarah, drained. Of all hope, we were in a final investor simulation, a digital stress test before our big pitch, and we were watching it burn. The algorithm, my algorithm, was crashing. Red alerts flooded the screen. Simulated delivery trucks were getting lost, creating impossible traffic jams, hemorrhaging virtual money. It was a disaster. After 3 minutes, the simulation flatlined. The projected losses were catastrophic. Matthew threw his headset on the table. "It's over. Jess," he said, his voice hollow. "The core is flawed. We're done." Sarah was already packing her bag, her expression a mask of disappointment. "We pushed too hard, too fast," she whispered. They were ready to quit. They saw an irreparable failure. I saw a variable I hadn't accounted for. For the next 72 hours, I didn't leave the office. I lived on caffeine and cold pizza. surrounded by whiteboards covered in frantic equations. Matthew and Sarah were gone, answering emails from concerned investors. It was just me and the broken code. I ran diagnostics until my eyes burned. I retraced every line, every command. And then, at 3 a.m. on the third day, I found it. It was a single, elegant, devastating mistake. I had optimized for speed. Every variable in the system was designed to find the absolute fastest route. But the real world isn't about speed alone. It's about efficiency, fuel consumption, traffic patterns, and environmental impact. I was solving the wrong problem. It wasn't a flaw, it was a fundamental misunderstanding of the question. In that moment, everything pivoted. I didn't try to fix the old code. I started writing a new one. I rebuilt the entire logic from the ground up. But this time, the primary optimization wasn't speed. It was carbon emission reduction. It was a radical shift. The new Nexus flow wouldn't just be fast, it would be green. It would save companies millions, not just in time, but in fuel, in carbon taxes, in public perception. That near-failure pivot didn't just save the company. It defined it. It's what made Nexus Flow so valuable. Not to just any investor, but specifically to a company like Terra Logistics. My success wasn't born from luck. It was forged in the fire of a spectacular failure, and it was mine alone. We were back at the table in Aria. The string quartet was playing something soft and forgettable. My father cleared his throat. A sound of dismissal. Jessica, what is this? Some kind of student project portfolio. My mother attempted a gentle smile. Darling, whatever it is, we can discuss it later. They scoffed. They were so sure of their position. I said nothing. I simply turned the first page of my gray folder. At the top, in bold, clean letters, was the headline from a press release embargoed until the next morning. Terra Logistics acquires sustainable AI startup Nexus Flow in landmark deal. The scoffing stopped. Ashley leaned forward, her eyes scanning the document. Her perfectly curated composure beginning to crack. Acquires, she repeated, the word sounding foreign in her mouth. My father snatched the paper. His eyes, the eyes of a man who reads contracts for a living, moved with lethal speed. He saw the number first. I watched the muscle in his jaw clench as he read it. $12.4 million. Jennifer whispered his name. Robert, but he didn't hear her. He was staring at the name of the acquiring company, Terra Logistics. The name hung in the air between us, thick and heavy. A company he had tried to bankrupt a decade ago. A rival he had publicly humiliated. And then I delivered the final blow. My voice as quiet and precise as a surgeon's scalpel. The CEO sends his regards. I said, David Harrison was very impressed with my work. The blood drained from my father's face. The realization hit him like a physical impact. This wasn't just a business deal. This was karma. Delivered by his own daughter. My victory was his rival's ultimate revenge. All the money, all the success I had achieved would now be credited to the man he despised most. My mother was speechless, her hand frozen halfway to her wine glass. Ashley's phone was now flat on the table, its screen dark. For the first time in my life, I had their complete, undivided attention. I stood up, my chair making no sound on the thick rug. I left their sunset clause letter on the table, a useless artifact from a failed transaction. You can keep your letter, I said, my voice steady. I had my own validation. It was signed, sealed, and delivered. I walked out of Aria and into the cool Seattle night. The air tasted of rain and freedom. For the first time, I felt the weight of their expectations lift, not just from my shoulders, but from my entire life. It was a profound, quiet release. 2 weeks later, I was having coffee with my old mentor, Dr. Thompson. He was a kind man with sharp eyes who had always believed in my work. He pushed a clipped article from the Times Puget Sound Business Journal Times across the table. It wasn't about my acquisition. It was a small piece, buried in the business section. The headline was innocuous. Robert Morgan steps down from Arts Foundation Board. But Dr. Thompson pointed to a specific line, his departure. The article noted, came amid recent significant shifts in the tech logistics landscape. There it was, the quiet echo, no public scandal, no shouting match, just a subtle, professional consequence. He hadn't been fired. He had been rendered irrelevant. His expertise was now overshadowed by a world he failed to understand. A world where his own daughter's success, funded by his greatest enemy, had shifted the very ground beneath his feet. It was the perfect karmic justice. A quiet, public humiliation that would be understood by everyone in their circle, but never spoken of aloud. As I read the article, my phone vibrated. A text from Ashley. "Can we talk?" I stared at the blinking cursor. The 3 words, a desperate attempt to reopen a door I had permanently closed. They didn't want a sister or a daughter. They wanted an asset. And now that my value had skyrocketed, they wanted to renegotiate. I turned my phone face down on the table, the screen going dark. Some messages aren't meant to be answered. They're meant to be a reminder of the peace you've chosen instead. My revenge wasn't loud. It was the calm breath in a quiet room. It was the choice to walk away. They wrote me out of their story. But in doing so, they made me the author of my own. Some stories don't end with forgiveness. They end with clarity. If you have ever been the quiet one in the room, the one they underestimated, this is for you. Know that your silence is not weakness. It's strategy. And the victory that follows is a peace they can never touch